She announced at dinner, "I'm engaged to your best friend. We've been seeing each other for months." The whole table went silent, all eyes on me, waiting for the explosion. I didn't say a word. I just unlocked my phone under the table, pulled up a single photo, and airdropped it to him. My girlfriend's name was Amelia, and my best friend's name was Liam. For the last 4 years, I thought my life was set. I had a good job, a beautiful woman I loved, and a friend I'd known since we were kids. The truth is, I had none of those things. What I had was a ticking time bomb, and for the last 6 weeks, I'd been carefully dismantling it so that when it finally went off, I'd be the only one walking away unharmed. The first crack in the foundation appeared about 2 months ago. Amelia started changing. My Amelia was a fun, down-to-earth woman who was happy with a pizza and a movie night. This new Amelia was obsessed with status. Suddenly, she needed to be seen at the right art galleries, the trendiest new restaurants, the exclusive charity events. Our weekends, once reserved for us, were now filled with a social calendar I had no part in creating. When I asked about it, she'd just wave a dismissive hand. "It's for my career, Ethan. It's networking. You wouldn't understand." Then came the gifts. A designer handbag she claimed she got on a deep discount. A pair of shoes that cost more than my monthly car payment, which she said was a gift from a client. Her stories were always plausible, just plausible enough to make me feel like a jerk for questioning them. Liam, my best friend, was her biggest cheerleader. He'd be over at our place for a game, and he'd just gush about her ambition. "She's going places, man," he'd say, clapping me on the back. "You're lucky you have a woman with that kind of drive." I see now he wasn't just cheering her on. He was scouting the competition. The real alarm bell went off 6 weeks ago. It wasn't one single thing, but a collection of small deliberate changes. She started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets, angling the screen away from me and taking calls in the other room. Then, her laptop conveniently started having major issues right before a big work project. She asked if she could use our shared home office computer for a few weeks. As a programmer, I knew my way around a computer. I told her I'd set her up with a fresh user profile so she wouldn't have to worry about any of my files. That was the opening I needed. Before I created her profile, I installed a discrete keylogger and remote viewing software. It felt like a massive violation of trust, but my gut was screaming at me that the trust was already gone. I was just looking for confirmation. I didn't have to wait long. The first night she used the computer, I saw it all from my own laptop in the other room. I saw her log into a secret email account. I saw the messages between her and Liam. They weren't just flirting. They were planning a life together. They were mocking me, my job, my lack of ambition. They talked about the perfect moment to tell me, how they would do it in a way that would leave me too stunned to react. Then I saw the other messages, the ones to a man named Julian Croft. A quick search revealed who he was, a real estate mogul in his late 50s, married and incredibly wealthy. The messages to him were different, a calculated mix of flattery and promises. She was playing a much bigger, more dangerous game than I ever imagined. Liam wasn't the endgame. He was just the publicly acceptable upgrade from me until she could secure the real prize. The betrayal was a physical blow. My best friend, the woman I lived with. But the anger was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating focus. They thought they were being clever. They thought I was a fool who wouldn't notice their little plot. I decided right then and there that I wouldn't just confront them. I would let them build their little fantasy world, and then I would be the one to burn it to the ground. This wasn't going to be a messy breakup. It was going to be a controlled demolition. I continued to monitor her activity, gathering my ammunition. I saw the hotel bookings for business trips her company had never sanctioned, all paid for by Julian. I saw her online shopping receipts for the gifts from clients. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place a week ago. She told me she had to go on another work trip, this one to a tech conference in a nearby city. My software told me a different story. It showed a reservation at a 5-star boutique hotel under Julian's name. It also showed a flight confirmation for her, not to the conference city, but to a private airstrip near Julian's coastal estate. This was my chance. I knew from his social media that Julian was a sailing enthusiast. I also knew he had a favorite restaurant in the harbor town near his estate. I took 2 days off work, telling Amelia I was visiting my sick uncle. I drove the 4 hours to that town. I sat at a cafe across the street from that restaurant for 7 hours, just waiting. And then I saw them, Julian and Amelia, walking out of the restaurant laughing. He had his arm around her, and she was looking up at him with the same fake adoration she used to give me. He was wearing a very distinctive, custom-made watch, a detail I had noted from his online profiles. I took out my phone, zoomed in, and took one perfect, clear photo. Amelia, Julian, and his very recognizable, very expensive watch, all in one frame. I had my weapon. I knew the end was coming soon. Amelia and Liam were getting bolder, more careless. The final act was set in motion when Liam called me on Monday. He wanted to have a celebratory dinner on Friday. He said he had some big news to share. He suggested a fancy restaurant, one of their new favorites. He told me to invite Amelia, of course. It was all so painfully transparent. This was it. This was the night they were going to make their grand announcement. I understood their motivation perfectly. They didn't just want to break up with me. They wanted to humiliate me. They saw me as a passive, simple guy who would be too embarrassed to cause a scene. By announcing their engagement in front of our friends, they could control the narrative, painting me as the guy who got left behind, the guy who just couldn't keep up. It was a power play, and I was happy to let them think they were the ones in control. I spent the next 4 days preparing. I opened a new bank account and transferred all of my savings out of our joint account, leaving only a few $100s. I contacted a lawyer and had him draft a formal eviction notice, since Amelia's name was not on the deed to my house. I packed all of her belongings, every last shoe and handbag, into boxes and had a moving company put them into a storage unit. I paid for the first month. By Friday morning, every trace of her was gone from my home. The only thing left was the single photo on my phone. That night, at the restaurant, the atmosphere was thick with attention only I understood. Amelia and Liam were practically glowing, exchanging little secret smiles and touches under the table. They thought they were the masters of this universe, holding all the cards. They ordered the most expensive bottle of champagne. Finally, after the main course, it was Amelia who stood up. She tapped her glass with a spoon, a smug, radiant smile on her face. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice full of fake emotion. "I just wanted to say thank you all for being here. This last year has been one of incredible growth for me, and I've had to make some difficult decisions to follow my heart and find my true happiness." She glanced at me, a flicker of pity in her eyes. It was all part of the performance. "Sometimes," she continued, "you realize that the life you have isn't the life you're destined for. And I am so happy to say that I've found the person I'm destined to be with." She turned to Liam, her eyes shining. "Liam and I have been seeing each other for the past few months, and tonight I'm thrilled to announce that we're engaged." The other friends at the table, who were clearly in on the surprise, erupted in applause. They all turned to me, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity, waiting for me to break down. I didn't. I just smiled. I looked at Liam, my best friend, the man who had just stolen my life, and I gave him a slow, knowing nod. Then I looked down at my phone. I selected the photo I had taken a week ago, Amelia and Julian, with his custom watch gleaming in the sunlight. I selected Liam's name from my contacts and hit send on the airdrop. A moment later, Liam's phone chimed. He glanced at it, a flicker of annoyance on his face. Then his eyes widened. He went completely still. The color drained from his face, leaving him a ghastly shade of white. He looked from the phone to Amelia and then to me. In my eyes, he saw not anger, but a cold, hard finality. He finally understood. He wasn't the winner. He was just another pawn in her game. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The restaurant went quiet. "When was this picture taken?" he asked Amelia, his voice dangerously low. She stammered, trying to see his phone. "What picture? Baby, what's wrong?" "This picture," he roared, shoving the phone in her face. "With Julian Croft. This was taken last Saturday. You told me you were visiting your sick aunt in the countryside. You used my credit card to book the hotel." The color drained from Amelia's face. She was trapped. There was no lie big enough to get her out of this. The other friends at the table were just staring, their jaws hanging open. "We're done," Liam said, his voice shaking with fury. He took the brand new engagement ring from his pocket and threw it on the floor. You are the most conniving, deceitful person I have ever met. You were playing us both. He looked at me, a flicker of shame in his eyes. He knew, he said to the table. He knew this whole time. He threw a few $100 bills on the table to cover his share of the meal. Then he turned and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Amelia just sat there, completely and utterly exposed. Her perfect announcement, her grand victory, had turned into a public execution. I calmly took out my wallet, paid for my share of the bill, and stood up. Well, I said to the stunned silence of the table, this has been an eventful evening. Then I walked out, leaving her alone at the center of the wreckage. I got home to my quiet, clean apartment. I blocked her number, Liam's number, and the numbers of all the friends who had been in on it. The silence was wonderful. An hour later, the pounding on my door started. It was her. I could see her on my doorbell camera, her face a mess of tears and rage. Ethan, open this door. We need to talk. I just watched the feed, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. After a few minutes of her screaming my name, I spoke through the intercom. There's nothing to talk about, Amelia. We're done. Her tone changed instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by a desperate, pleading sob. No, baby, no. I loved you. It was always you. Liam was a mistake. Julian was nothing. Please let me in. I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore, I said. Your belongings are in a storage unit. The key and the address have been sent to your parents' house via overnight courier. They should arrive tomorrow morning. She just stared at the camera, her mouth opening and closing. The idea that I had been so many steps ahead of her was something her mind couldn't seem to process. She started screaming again, a raw, primal sound of pure frustration. She screamed that she hated me, that she had never loved me, that I had ruined her life. I just turned off the intercom and went to my kitchen to pour myself a drink. I had one last move to make. I found Julian Croft's wife on social media. Her profile was public. I sent her a message from a newly created anonymous account. It was the same photo I had sent to Liam with a simple caption, "Your husband, last Saturday, thought you should know." The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Amelia's father. His tone wasn't angry. It was defeated. He said the courier had just arrived with the storage unit key. He told me Amelia had shown up at their house in the middle of the night, hysterical, telling them some twisted version of the story where I was the villain. He said that after getting the key, they knew my side was closer to the truth. He told me they had given her an ultimatum: get a real job and start therapy, or she was on her own. The bank of mom and dad was closed. That was the first domino. The second domino fell 2 days later. Julian Croft's wife, a woman named Eleanor, was not the type to sit quietly. She didn't reply to my anonymous message. Instead, I got an email to my work address from her personal assistant, requesting a brief, confidential call. I agreed. Eleanor was polite, cold, and efficient. She had clearly done her homework on me. She thanked me for the information and asked if I had any more. I forwarded her a selection of the keylogged evidence, hotel receipts in Julian's name, screenshots of Amelia's shopping sprees on his dime. I didn't ask for anything in return. Helping her was its own reward. The fallout was spectacular. Within a week broke of the Crofts' impending, very public divorce. Eleanor, armed with my evidence, cleaned him out, but she wasn't just after his money. She was a majority shareholder in a rival company. She used the scandal to orchestrate a hostile takeover of a subsidiary of Julian's company, a project he had been working on for years. She didn't just divorce him, she professionally crippled him. Julian, embroiled in legal and financial chaos, ghosted Amelia completely. Her golden ticket was gone. Meanwhile, Amelia's smear campaign against me began. It was weak and desperate. She told our old friends that I was a possessive monster who had used a photoshopped picture to drive a wedge between her and Liam because I couldn't stand to see her happy. It might have worked if Liam hadn't been on a scorched earth campaign of his own. He called me about a week after the dinner. He sounded terrible. He didn't apologize for the affair. He wasn't that kind of man, but he did apologize for underestimating me. He told me that he had gone into our old group chat and laid out the entire truth. The months of lying, the planning, Amelia's other affair with Julian. He did it to save his own reputation, not to help me, but the result was the same. He ended the call by saying, "She's a sociopath, man. You're lucky to be rid of her." He moved to a different state a month later. Amelia was now truly radioactive. She had no boyfriend, no fiancé, no wealthy benefactor. Her parents were keeping her at arm's length, and her friends had all sided with me or Liam. She was a social pariah. That's when the final, pathetic phase began. About a month after the dinner, I received a formal-looking letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer. Amelia was demanding financial support. She claimed that our 4-year relationship constituted a common-law marriage, and that she was entitled to half of my assets, including a portion of the value of my house. She was also suing for emotional distress caused by my public humiliation of her. I just laughed and forwarded it to the lawyer I had already consulted. My lawyer's response was a work of art. It was a single page. It stated that our state did not recognize common-law marriage. It included a copy of the deed to my house, showing it was solely in my name and purchased before I ever met her. It included the formal eviction notice. And then the final paragraph, which was my favorite part. It stated that if she were to proceed with her frivolous lawsuit, my legal team would be forced to subpoena witnesses regarding her infidelity, including one Mr. Liam last name and one Mr. Julian Croft. It noted that Mr. Croft's very public and contentious divorce proceedings might make him a less than willing participant, but that his testimony regarding their financial arrangements would be highly relevant. We never heard from her lawyer again. It's been 6 months now. The silence is complete. I heard through the grapevine that her parents eventually took pity on her and let her move into their basement. She's working some low-level admin job, constantly complaining about how unfair her life is. Julian Croft is a shadow of his former self, and his ex-wife Eleanor's company is thriving. Liam is gone. The friends who sided with them are gone. My life is quiet. I reclaimed my home, my finances, and my peace of mind. They tried to play a game, thinking they were the only ones who knew the rules. They didn't realize I had already rewritten the code and set the board. I blocked Amelia on every platform, changed my number the next day, and enjoyed the silence. I had won. Not by yelling, not by fighting, but by thinking.